that meeting that we had earlier today was like that was pretty interesting with AI and where things are going. I love those events, just kind of coming in and like getting on the train. I'm in New York City and it's like, boom, I'm here.
Yeah, it was a good crowd today. I'm a little tired of talking about Gen AI and how it's going to change the business. I liked the conversation about the economics of the law business and how it's going to go. Are there going to be big law firms in the same way that there are now? Is the middle market of law firms going to react differently?
Yeah.
Are we going to meet more legal needs? That's what I think. I think there's a huge swath of unmet legal needs at every level, not just, I mean, one of the things in terms of access to justice that's been pointed out about the law firm ownership model, the ethical rules
Yeah.
that the states have adopted that only lawyers can own law firms means that there are fewer law
Right.
firms, are more expensive, and the common person can't afford to pay a lawyer. A lawyer coming out of law school who doesn't have capital can't afford to create a law firm. If they can't get a job at a law firm, then they can't practice if someone won't hire them. So
Right.
we have all these, we have too many lawyers and not enough and unmet legal services,
Yeah.
So in theory, and I think those ownership rules are going to change, and Gen AI could help us meet more legal needs. But it's not just at the low level. I've talked to in-house people, what like when LIBOR
Yeah.
went away as an interest rate for big commercial loans, the London interbank overnight rate, right? Because of perceived potential for corruption and price fixing. So gone, but
Yeah.
so many loans were tied to that. And big companies had to find them and they couldn't even find them. So now with better tools, that kind of thing, there's just unmet needs at every level, I think.
It was an interesting conversation, especially when I heard like them talking about PE firms coming into the space, and it was just like, oh, okay, yeah, 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 I
Well,
can see it.
along those lines, I don't see any reason why Costco
Yeah.
shouldn't be able to hire lawyers and pay them to do consumer leases and review your employment agreement, do a simple estate plan, the kinds of legal needs that most people have.
Right.
Costco, Walmart, you could go get your will done. Why not? So that's what it ultimately leads to.
Well, you have an interesting life. Knowledge management director at various firms, currently at Mayor Brown, an attorney as well. You came from a family of actors. You were an actor or are an actor. It looks like you're on your way to, I don't know if this is like gonna, if this is act two, act three, like how have you brought a storytelling or an actor's mind to really everything you do from starting as an attorney and moving to now?
Yeah. Grew up the son of actors. So I think our house was full of storytelling. I would
Yeah.
watch my dad on TV on soap opera, and he would do plays, musicals. I would go watch him do those. My mom
Yeah.
did television commercials and things. So I think it was sort of inherent. I didn't really think of myself as a storyteller. And I wandered around in my head even through college until eventually I decided to be an actor. In roughly the second half of my sophomore year in college was when I
Okay.
said, okay,
Um,
I am going to be an actor. I thought
okay.
would do other things. And then I started really thinking about storytelling. I think as a lawyer and certainly as a litigator, what are you doing in front of a judge or
Yeah.
even interviewing a witness? I never thought of it, but you're not just a storyteller, but you're trying to elicit stories. And not everyone is a good storyteller.
Right.
So
Right.
sometimes it was work to get people, well, can you go back? Can you
Yeah.
tell that again? I don't feel like I've heard this story. I think people know when you heard the story and when somebody was skipping over things.
It's funny you mention it like that. I always talk about like the real true best way to be authentic is you have to get vulnerable. And getting vulnerable is really difficult and telling that story. And so I'm throw in questions like what you said, where it's like you're listening and this is like, okay, well, let's go back again.
I am thinking about, as an actor, how important it could be. You would use anything you could to feel like you could put yourself in the right frame and be the character.
Yeah.
But that included thinking about, what did it smell like, what did
Mm.
it sound like, what did and you would try to get your memories more um holistic, I guess, or
Yeah.
experiential, and sometimes that would really help.
We kind of connected because we bumped into each other at a meeting, and you were like, yeah, I'm like, I come from a family of actors, and I would have never thought that of you, because like, we're just talking and we're in like it was like a big lawyer world, and then hearing you just say that, like, about, oh yeah, we had to act, but we also had to think about like the smell, like to really get into the character. So how does like an actor working with as like a KM leader, like what has acting brought to you in that respect?
Being KM leader at a big law firm involves a lot of communication
Mm.
and selling,
Mm.
right? You're a big cost center. What am I going to do for you is the conversation that one has to have with partners who are paying the bills. And I've gotten way better during my knowledge management career over 30 years. At the beginning, I thought I knew it all. We all have that problem at times. I thought it was easy. I thought I could lay it out well. And it took me a while, and I had some really good mentors and feedback to get me to think about the business of law. You want to tell stories that can be heard by the person to whom you're telling the story, especially if you have an objective in telling this story. So I think I really learned how to think like a law firm partner and present plans and concepts in a way that resonated with the way that they thought about their business.
I know you talked about selling and the way that worked. So like walk me through that. Are you trying to think, like, what role are you playing in that? And do you go through that as an actor, or is it just something natural?
People have said to me, oh, actor, lawyer, same thing, right? And there are similarities in overly simplistic terms in the public speaking arena, right? Being confident, being able to be heard, being articulate, perhaps, whatever.
Yeah.
You can have maybe having some presence and being okay in front of an audience. But there are diametrically opposed goals that lawyers usually have. Maybe not a knowledge management lawyer. So, but I'm going to say certainly a courtroom, a trial lawyer, a litigator.
Okay.
Because you want to convince, you want to manipulate. An actor, and you just said this, wants to reveal. Right? Even if your character is the worst bad person and you have some ulterior motive, you want people to see, how did this person get there? It's going to be way more moving and effective if it's more complicated and human.
Yeah.
And so you want people to see, I'm lying, or I know things that the other person doesn't know I know, or and I got better and better as an actor the more I let down my guard and the less I tried to control. But as a trial lawyer, the last thing you want to do is reveal what you really think. Like, oh, I'm making this argument, but I really don't believe it. That would be disastrous. So they are a little bit diametrically opposed. I think what we're talking about selling is somewhere in between, wanting to resonate with the values that the partner or the partners have in terms of why they're even talking to you. What is it they expect? And ideally, you're taking them farther than they knew they could go. That they might have some expectations. Oh, you're going to do this for me. But then if you can say, well, but wait, you want to do this and this and this, to get them excited, right? I'm going to, delight you. I did as an actor, a lot of sales videos, handling objections, how do you take your customer on a journey? all of those ideas, right, as storytelling to get somebody to be like, yes, okay, I will write a check for that.
All right, so walk me through the sales videos and whatnot.
So I started out as an actor, did that for a year, went to law school, needed to be sure that there was money around for my family. And I just thought I was going to be some kind of lawyer 9 to 5. I didn't know there were big law firms. I didn't know anything. I thought I was going to be do community theater at night.
Okay.
Did better than I thought. Doors open. I wound up working for a big prestigious law firm in Boston, 70 hours a week.
Wow.
Did that for 5 years. Was good at it,
Yeah.
but it wasn't my passion, and I wound up quitting and going back to acting.
Okay.
I'm already a lawyer at this second phase of acting. And so I had an advantage, I think, in the corporate spokesperson video world, an insurance company wanting to make a video to show its salespeople how to sell life insurance to different kinds of customers, for example. Teleprompter. I'm reading the teleprompter. So I was a good reader. I understood. And, some of my actor colleagues would say things like, why would I say it like that? And I would say, oh, I know why the lawyers did that. They can't say it, right? Interestingly, those were business acting things. It wasn't to move you. It wasn't because you care about me, the character in that context. I was really delivering a business message. So I really learned how to do that. So I got very good at handling that kind of content. I think being a lawyer gave me an advantage. It was interesting because I was very good. I might have told you this before. I was very good in the long form. Okay. If you need someone to read a teleprompter for an hour and a half about your new benefits as an employee, right? All the details, I knew how to keep the energy up throughout that hour and a half.
All right, so you did sales videos, basically.
Training,
yeah, okay.
Different spokesperson, right? And live stuff. I would go out to Vegas, do the Consumer Electronics Show, the computer show.
And you also did soaps, right?
I was on camera on every soap opera that has produced in New York since 1985.
All right, so you've got your soaps. You've got your cross-selling pharmaceutical, corporate spokesperson, teleprompter for hour plus long. And as an attorney, but now we're also going into live speaking engagements. What's different when you're telling a story and you're now live in front of an audience? Like when I'm speaking, I've always taken this approach. It's helped me sort of calm down when I get if I were to get nervous, anxious, even if I suck, even if I don't remember what it is that I'm talking about, right? I know my bullets, but if I lose my train of thought, whatever it is, I just want them to remember me. And my goal is not remember me, obviously, if I'm choking up or something like that, but I want tell a joke. It doesn't have to be the most funniest joke in the world, but try to break the ice, break the pattern, get into there. Otherwise, it's just too much. What about you? And when you're doing that, you're talking about big conferences and
conventions, right? You're trying to get people's attention, eye contact, try to relate to them, try to make it exciting. Why do I care? This is a 65-inch television,
right?
Look at it, to bring some of that, message. But often those were, the Vegas stuff was pretty much scripted.
Okay.
But you could still relate to the people who were there.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
And adapt.
Yep.
Right. If it's working, it's working. Yeah. And if it's not, you just finish it and do the next one.
Well, all right. So all right, we talked about that. But what about also talking about just being a team leader and that how do you work? We have 35 people that work with you.
Yeah.
So, I'm sure that there's also some storytelling within them. Can you talk about that I don't think people think about that. They think about video content or this and that. There's so much other storytelling that goes on within your industry.
When a new person joins my team, and very often lawyers who become knowledge management lawyers for a practice, right? They're going to be finance in the US or litigation in London or whatever. They're often coming from being fee earning lawyers. We have hired people who were knowledge management lawyers already. That's a little easier. But I will spend as much as 8 to 10 hours one-on-one with a new person. And I start at the beginning with basics, housekeep, are you settled? How are you today? I tell them, you can ask me the same question 10 times. I'm going to share with you the story of why you're here, why we're doing this, and what we've done so far. And I start with the history of the law firm. When I was at White and Case, I did that at Mayer Brown. I talk about where the firm has come from over the last 100 years, how it got to where it is today, why the firm is interested in knowledge management. And then I go through, Mayer Brown has a formal firm strategy, and I spend an hour at least talking a person through the overall firm strategy. Where is the firm in the market? Why is the firm thinking about things? I think it's important that you are able to carry this or to work in that context. Then I'll talk about my knowledge management strategy. Then I talk about what projects we've done and what tools we have, all the while trying to make sure I'm connecting, resonating, because I think that it's better to share the story that I want to tell at the beginning, where how I see you fitting in to the team and the mission. Let's share the vision and the mission. And I want to tell you that now, as opposed to having you go off and do 10 things and me having to come and say, oh, you really don't want to do that. That's not in line with that. So I want to do that all. It's really worthwhile for me. And I think people appreciate the attention. I want to keep them out of trouble. I want them to know details and cultural issues and internal shorthand and terminology that partners might take for granted that everyone here knows, so they don't look foolish. They never bump into walls. So I think they appreciate being supported. I also tell them that they have everything they need to be successful. That's why we hired them. They can be successful. And if they're not, it's because I didn't pave the way properly. I didn't give them the tools and the material that they needed to be successful. And that's why I'm here. That's my mission, but I completely trust you.
It's very interesting because so that is 100% company culture, right? You're giving them the company culture. And I think what company culture means when you're acting is character development, right? Or the context of the scene. So it sounds a lot like you almost have like your director sort of, well, you are.
I want you to be right. I need to show you the choreography.
Right. These are the parameters. This is the set. You can take it how you want with your own talents, but you need to know how this is what's happening in the scene. These are all of the things that are going to be in motion. It seems like that's what you're developing for somebody.
I think that's a good way to say it. I tell them things like how the money moves,
right?
How the budgets work. I want them to know all of that. It's true, and it's a different. And another thing I do, which is part of the story, is I tell everyone the diversity, inclusion, safety.
Oh, okay.
Right? I say, I'm not telling you this because I think you're different or have some reason to need to know this.
Right.
I tell everyone this. We want you to be who you are. We want you not to have to hide. We're going to judge you based on your work. And if you get in trouble, you get mistreated, you get misunderstood, I will have your back. And you can talk to me and I will back you up, and you don't have to be afraid. I tell that to every person I hire.
Oh, that's amazing.
I had good training.
Oh, for sure. Well, also you're at a firm that like embraces that culture 100%. As well. So we've done a lot of content around that, and you're doing a really good job explaining what the culture is and that you can be your true authentic self. And I think there's a lot of companies that are like that.
Yeah. And we believe that will be best for the work.
Of course. Of course.
Like, that's why. It's selfish.
Right. Yeah. All right, let's talk about this, I don't know what you want to call it, second act, third act, fourth act, whatever, but because you again, like you were acting as a kid, and then you went to law school, attorney, and then at some point you were like, my goal has changed, and you go back into acting, and you're doing um soaps, you're doing full on, presentations and all that kind of amazing stuff. And then all of a sudden you're like, hey, you get back into legal, right? I know you were doing legal at the
Well, I
sort
got
of parallel.
part-time work.
Right. Yeah.
A fabulous law firm, Debevoise in
Yeah.
Plimpton in the 80s,
Okay.
and started doing things that were helpful.
Right.
And technology arrived. WordPerfect arrived. PC Docs, Docs Open, whatever it was, arrived. And I started helping build. And I was just working by the hour when I wanted to.
Yeah.
I was writing summaries of legal research documents. I was building on the very nascent intranet in Microsoft Front Page, HTML coding. I was building practice pages and matter pages for very complicated international arbitration matters, just because I thought those would be helpful. I kind of had free reign to create things.
So you're building processes and
making things more efficient and
yeah.
easier. And I had high standards. So,
Yeah.
We had a hard copy, Debevoise had a hard copy loose leaf of corporate standard forms. But when computers arrived, nobody had to tell me, and WordPerfect arrived. I'm like, we want those on the desktop. So I learned about WordPerfect. I worked with IT document services team, and I made sure every one of those documents was a really healthy, properly styled WordPerfect document, like not sloppy.
Right.
Like I was like, okay, how do we make this perfect?
Yeah.
And then I got them on, I asked questions to figure out how to put an icon on everyone's desktop, what was called a project in PC Docs, so people could just click on that project, from the documents. And, I just thought, well, that's going to be better. So I did it. And so my acting career started to get older. It became about the money.
Yeah.
And I worked I had 3 to 5 jobs a month. I mean, I was working.
Yeah.
And I had a really good job, $10,000 job for Pfizer.
Yeah.
We shot 7 days in Central Park. It was an Indiana Jones theme. I was doing that.
About this. Yeah.
And I was hanging onto a rock when the camera operator and the director got into an argument about positioning the camera for the close-up. And I was like frustrated. I want to go home. And I thought, okay, that means if this is about the money for me, I should let someone else be here.
You shared that story, and I don't know, it meant a lot. Like it was, I know what you mean, that it shouldn't be about the money. I mean, but going back to what you said earlier, I think you said something, it's always selling. You're always sort of selling. So, but yeah, I know. And I loved your analogy when you were like, I think you just do both shots.
Yeah.
like I understand.
Well, you've done, I had done, part of my work was doing video. I was did news shooting and stuff. So I understood it.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you guys doing? There's 30 people here.
Well, you were training people too, were you not? On
networks. I was training camera operators to shoot, news. And so, that was a key moment. And I went to the partner who was overseeing my part-time work at Debevoise. Mm-hmm. And I said, can I come and be a forever litigation associate? I was almost 50 years old. And I said, I know I'm never going to make partner. I don't have a book of business, but I just want to use my brain. And I thought to myself, talking about not wanting to reveal, I'm going to be miserable. I'm going to be working until 3 a.m. I'm going to be exhausted. I'm going to be having to push myself. It's going to be really hard, but I want to have a family. I have, everybody has to work. My grandfather worked in the coal mines. I'm lucky to be able to go work at a law firm. And it was John Curry who said, okay, could do that, but gosh, look at all this stuff you've done. And I'd been working there part-time for 14 years. And John said, why don't you be our full-time knowledge management lawyer? 1999, this is, and you tell us what to do. And that's how my knowledge management career started. About 2 months ago, I called John up and told him I was retiring and thanked him.
Yeah, you told me.
It's really good.
Yeah, he had some good advice for you too, or not advice, but I think he thank you when you thanked him.
He said it was you. Your reality is part ultimately the story you tell yourself. And I also told other people how incredibly lucky I was. Wasn't I lucky that this happened? And asked John Curry that in 1999, that job exists. And he said, well, for you, it does. And so for a long time, I was like, oh, I was lucky. And I had good mentors. And I realized, no, I created that. And because, now in the current economy, some of the story is that's what you want to do, right? People have found ways to make a living that you never would have thought. Being an influencer, who would have thought you could do that as a career, right? All these things were, and even in our illegal tech world, how do I go make a spot for myself or make a company? And I realized in retrospect, I kind of did that. I did 14 years of proving myself to the firm that I had the firm's best interests in mind, that I had some talents and skills that might be useful. So I kind of created my job.
I guess it goes a little bit in the storytelling, but it's that personal branding, branding yourself, and going back to when you're talking about influencers and the different jobs that come about that maybe weren't here so many times. I mean, now with the advent of social and everything else, but what you were talking about with knowledge management is, seems like he knew that like you were building.
He had some interesting vision as a partner, right? He saw some of the potential.
I wanted to ask you, what's one storytelling technique from acting that someone on your team should take with them?
Learn.
Yeah. Or that you hope.
Don't bury the lead.
Yeah.
Right? As a really big one. And I used to be a real lawyer. So let's say I wanted to I wanted to create a role that is new in the knowledge management world, right? The partners don't know that exists. My tendency would have been to start at the very beginning. We're not as efficient as we could be. We wish we could do these things. These are the problems we have. I would want to lay it all out. And then somewhere in the 5th paragraph, maybe say, so I think we should hire a knowledge lawyer, right? And this is why. And always been around. My former boss came to me and he said, need to get to the point sooner. And he told me, ABC, put your ask. What are you asking? Put it in the first sentence. Then have background, then a conclusion, but ask right up front. So my instinct was tell them the whole story and then ask them. But instead I said in the first sentence, would you be willing to help us interview candidates for a new, professional support lawyer role that we're going to have for the corporate department? Here's more background. Within 30 minutes, I got 7 yeses. And I don't even know if they read the rest. Right. All they had to know was, you're asking me if I'll interview someone who's going to be some new role. I'll figure the rest out later. Now I can say yes. So that's another thing I'd say, make it easy for someone to say yes.
And I want to go deeper into don't bury the lead. Mm-hmm. And I think it happens a lot. And really, when I hear don't bury the lead, all I hear is what's your hook?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And number one question I would always get asked is, how long should a video be? And I was I would say, but it was still too long-winded. I would say it doesn't matter how long your video should be, it matters what your message is. But if I could condense it down even more, all that matters is your hook. Right? So when you see a video, it doesn't matter the platform, it's the hook. But I think it all goes back to don't bury the lead. And so maybe you can kind of get go into that.
Well, now you're going to set me off in a whole new direction, which is when I was training, I worked, long story, but I wound up working for the news networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, about 10 years, training people to shoot news, shoulder held or tripod news cameras. And we were talking earlier, they were big and there had to be a separate audio person with the tape deck. Yeah. And it was like a backup. These were people who in emergency might go do things for the networks, executives, for example. So they weren't going to be full-time camera people. So it was this quick. Of course, they had a day of here's the camera. And then we went out. I was hired as an actor, news correspondent to go out and make up news stories and shoot them.
Yeah.
And so what would I shoot? The hook. I knew I would be safe if I had a good hook, because we would go to South Street Seaport or the Intrepid or various places, the Bronx Zoo,
Yeah.
and we would interview people and just tell them it was fake. But as long as I had a hook, I knew I could do it. So, for example, Manhattan is leaking. I would say shoot a puddle, and that the river is, the streets are leaking, or Smokey the Bear died of lung cancer. He was actually a chain smoker. Just all you needed was one thing.
Oh yeah, totally. I interviewed a woman that she's an influencer. She's got her own marketplace and a really incredible person. She's got lots of followers on TikTok, and we were talking about the way she does her content and her hooks. And she'll start a hook with, she'll do like a cooking thing. And she's like, the video will start with her like holding a muffin, and she's like, "I'm gonna make muffins today. I don't know if I can make them. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make them." She's already showing that she made the muffin. But then she's with, "I don't know if I can do it. Stick around to see." And these are like old techniques that like you pull somebody in.
It's interesting also, and I'm thinking about being a consumer of services also. So many companies, information providers, tech providers, want attention and want you to look at their stuff and get feedback. And one of the things that doesn't appeal to me is when somebody comes in and says, "Tell me your pain points," and I'm like, I know tell me give me some context. Tell me, you should know who I am. You should know what my pain points are. Like, if you're talking to me, you should have done your homework. And that's a horrible place to start.
It infuriates me if somebody's trying to sell me on something. And like, if I've taken the time for the call, I'm kind of excited now. Well, okay, good. This is, whatever. It's going to help me. There's an opportunity. I'm in the position of a need, maybe particularly for that particular service. And when I hear, "Tell me your pain points," I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't do any research? Like, you should be listening to me. You should already know what my pain points are, or at least some of them. But I don't want you. Obviously, we're gonna have that conversation. But to just sit there and hit me up with what are my pain points, I'm like, you don't know me at all. It's completely like,
one of the things I learned when talking with partners, and each of them has a different practice. IP lawyers, M&A lawyers, finance lawyers, litigators. So we would use examples. Like, what if you were doing this? And a lot of the IT trainers would have an example, and they would just do that one. I was like, nope, for the litigators, I'm going to use a litigation example. For the M&A lawyers, I'm going to talk M&A, and I'm going to learn enough and look at, and if I have to, I'm going to go look at some of their deals. I'm going to go and look, I'm going to read the descriptions of them. I'm going to go find their documents, and I'm going to know who their clients are. And what, that kind of thing, so that when I talk to them, they feel like I hear them, I'm aware of them.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You're like taking it's like a method actor approach when you're talking with your.
Where did I grow up? I grew up in your practice. I'm from your neighborhood. Right.
Yeah.
But it's so much more. They don't feel like you're wasting their time. It's so easy to waste someone's time.
Yeah. No, I agree. All right. So, before we kind of close it out, is there anything from a storytelling perspective that you would want somebody that's like, listening, watching, that you can kind of maybe give some advice, whether it's from an attorney on how for them to tell a better story, or maybe it's more like from the knowledge management, side of things. And because you work with a lot of different personalities, I'd imagine, at a firm like Mayer Brown.
The words that are coming to my mind are about vision and mission, and always being on mission. Like, what is your really need to understand why you're there, what is important to communicate, and what value you're bringing. And then how can you tell a story that like puts your mission in the spotlight and make someone, it's like you got to put the chocolate sauce on the ice cream. Like, you really want this, but it has to be in the business context. And if you are of value, right, you can't fool You can't fake
No.
this. You better know why you're there and what you're doing and what you're going to offer and what questions to ask. And you should have watched and listened and learned and been curious and asked questions so you are able to package a story that is relevant, sensible, achievable, and of value to make it easy for someone to say yes.
So are you gonna, before I wrap it up, are you gonna do, from an acting standpoint, are you gonna like search roles that would be more background from a corporate, legal, that kind of realm, or are you like opening it up to like?
I'm open. There are two things that are sort of top of mind.
Mm-hmm.
One is Law and Order,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I would love to play a lawyer or a judge.
Oh yeah.
My brother has been a Law and Order guest star 3 times, and I have a friend from the acting world back when who was a judge recently.
Okay.
So hopefully I could leverage those
Ah.
connections, and would be fun.
Yeah.
And then I also worked with in the past with a great theater company, Shakespeare, up in Lenox, Massachusetts,
Okay.
Shakespeare and Company.
Okay.
And I was in a show with
Yeah.
a guy named Alan Burrows. We did Measure for Measure, the two main male leads, and we became good friends. And that was 35 years ago. And he's now the artistic director at Shakespeare and Company.
Oh, cool.
So I've gone up, my wife and I've gone up to see him and hang out, and he has said, let me know.
Okay.
Let me know
Okay.
what, so it would have to be the right role. My wife is not so eager to go, she said, well, if I was with you, where would we stay? And well, they have housing for the actors. She's like, I'm not staying in a dorm with a bunch of actors, but we'll see.
You, just so people know, what is, if you can kind of, what is knowledge management? Like what, like director, like what do you do?
I tell the story.
Mm.
So when we first started thinking about knowledge management for law firms, and first of all, knowledge management grew partly because law firms were able to get really big and because technology arrived. When you had your 5-lawyer law firm in town, you could stick your head out the door and say, hey, have we ever done this before? And you could at least find out, no, we haven't, is a useful answer, right? Yes, we have. Here's what I have. No, then you have to go do the work to learn it and get good at it. It's frustrating if you're at a big law firm to think, well, we must have done this. I just can't find it. Right. But we all started out thinking we were solving just the drafting problem. I need to draft an intercreditor agreement. Where do I start? Don't we have a model or a precedent document? So we all started building precedent libraries, like collection. We would ask the lawyers, give us the good stuff, and we would build a database of good stuff and then tell lawyers to search it. And that solved some problems, but there were reasons why it didn't work. We still need it for the model, the crown jewel documents. But knowledge management has morphed into all the questions one might ask about how do I do this? Who knows how to do this? Is there a process? Is there a best practice? Where are the documents? Is there technology that will help me do it? That's the knowledge management that goes to how do I do the work? But knowledge management has gone even farther to the business. Should I be doing this work? What do I need to know in order to price this better? Should I be doing this work at all? Which of our partners supervises these kinds of matters more effectively? How do we interface with our clients? How do we produce and store and search closing sets or filed court documents? And that's why it's kind of, merged, morphed into innovation and data. Right? Because you want to know what you know. How do we I say to people, I've been spending my whole knowledge management career trying to get to zero, which is we have complete command of what we know today, and we can search it and get to it and answer questions that are answerable in our world. Now I want to be thinking about how is the law going to develop? What's going to be different a year from now? And how do I get our lawyers ready for that? Not there yet.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it. And that's it.